Hi there. I'm going to show you how to put in an effects loop made by these guys here, Metro Amps. I already put this loop in a JCM 800 Marshall a couple of years ago, and then when I sold it I took it out because I wanted to put it into this DrZ amp that I bought. I'll just show you what model it is. It is the SRZ, and I think it sounds better in this unit than it did in the Marshall. And definitely the SRZ, from what I've read, is sort of Dr. Z's take on a JCM 800 with much more the EQ system seems to be different, maybe less in the mids, but definitely clear and a great platform for pedals. And even on its own, the gain is really nice. Usually I play anywhere around here to 12 o'clock and then push it the front end with pedals for the higher gain stuff. Yeah, so anyways, so here's my effects loop plugins. Let's see if I don't drop this thing. Electrocute myself, and there we go. Boom. Okay. Didn't break anything yet. Anyways, here's my effects ins and outs. Haven't marked anything yet, and a bypass. Okay, so bear with me. This is pretty bojang. I'm using an iPod camera to film this. Need a couple blocks of wood here. Prop this thing up so I don't damage the tubes. But show you. Okay. So here's the board here. Oh, number one. Whenever you work on a tube amp, you have to discharge the capacitors. If you don't, and you get your hands in there in the wrong place, you can die. Very bluntly. Yeah, especially if you have both hands in here at the same time and the current runs through both your arms through your heart, you're pretty much a dead man. So you got to be super careful. Anyways, this effects loop from Metro, they supply you with all the info about wiring, but the wiring that they show you is for a Marshall. Now, because this amp is very similar, if not almost really close to a JCM 800, and that's just my opinion. I'm not electronics guy, but I just know enough to be dangerous. So far I haven't killed myself. Anyways, this is the back side of the loop. And the reason why in the thing they show it flipped over, but because the Dr. Z does not have a lot of room here. It's the box is quite small. That this housing and the housing and the board. So I found this was the best place to mount it. Had to mount it upside down, and this lead here is actually just the ground, and it's going right over and running into another ground. Basically I use the other ground to tie into right here. Pretty straightforward. Now the other lead, which is the hot, as you can see, I actually had to splice it. I didn't have enough wire, so I actually... Anyways, and here is the where you get your B plus voltage, which is feeding into the phase inverter tube, which is the third tube closest to the power tubes. All that other stuff you guys probably know. I'm not telling you anything probably that you don't. Let me just see if I can get some more light in here. Now this resistor, the way they tell you at Metro Amps is you take a reading here of the voltage. I think it was 260 or 270 volts. So to drop it down for the board, they give you a whole bunch of resistors. There's actually a chart. You can calculate what resistor you need to drop the voltage to run the board, because the board is actually run off the voltage, the B plus voltage of the amp. Now, I just learned all this stuff when I did it. I've heard of B plus voltage before, but I didn't know exactly what it was, and I really probably don't know yet, but it doesn't matter. The most important thing is you find it, and in this SRZ amp, it's right here. That's the best place to grab it so far that I know of. Now, some guys that see this will say, "Whoa, crappy installation job," but I don't care. As long as the thing works, and I have already played 2 gigs with this amp, and it was on for hours and hours, so I know that it's working perfect. What ends up happening, okay, so that's power, that's ground. Now we get into the good stuff, where the signal comes from. And where the signal comes from, bear with me. If you saw my rig, you would just laugh. But you know what? I'm not doing this to make money or anything. I'm just doing it to share, because I really do love working on things. I was in the automotive industry for about 40 years, and I worked on electronics and transmissions and everything, so I definitely am always interested in stuff. So basically, in the Marshall one, wiring, there is a jumper that jumps from the master volume to treble. Just goes across here. As a matter of fact, I think I have the wire here somewhere as well. Still too. Oh yeah, here's the wire. It's a little jumper wire. And it went right across from this outside lug of the master volume to the middle lug of the treble. Now, I've seen some guys on the forum that say that, okay, that's where DrZ, they'll attach their effects loop and it'll go to the opposite side, the back end of the amp. I tried that first just out of curiosity, and the volume is quite a drop in volume, and it just does not work with most effects units. You need to have something to boost it up. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put the effects loop in here. I did some testing first to make sure that it actually worked, and it worked great. And I didn't want to drill any holes. On my Marshall, I didn't drill holes. I used a speaker, one of the output speaker jacks. I put a stereo jack in it instead, and that way I didn't have to drill a hole. And then I had a breakout box to run it back into ins and outs. But in here, I decided I'm going to be using this amp a lot, and I don't think I'll be getting rid of it anytime soon. Decided to put the drill the holes and do the whole 9 yards. As you can see here they are here, and there's my. So the way this is wired is the ins and outs go directly to the, before they go to the board. So you can see there's a ground. They're both, the grounds are tied to here, but the ground does not follow all the way. It's actually just a shield for noise. It doesn't actually go to the board. The board gets its grounding from this wire here that I was talking about before. But before it goes to the board, it actually goes to the little switch here. So it's on the switch. You'll see it on the website, the diagrams, and you can download it and whatever, look at it. It goes here first, and that way if you want to bypass it, the effects loop is completely cancelled, and all you're getting is the wires, the signal running through the wire to the switch back to the other pot, and boom, it's as if it wasn't there, other than this length of run here. Anyways, where am I going with this? Yeah, so from there, there's an in and out on the board of wires that just connect right to the switch, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's only a little bit of, just the wiring and soldering here, taking the jumper out on the pots and attaching the ins and outs from these wires. If you decide to really do this, you'll see the diagrams and you'll get the idea what's going on here. Basically, with a guy with very little electronic knowledge other than a couple of night courses at a campus, college campus, it's pretty easy as long as you can use a soldering iron and a drill. Now the important part, the drilling part. If you drill these holes, I think it's 1.5 inches center to center. You have to be exact, because if you're not, this board will not fit through your holes. It'll be off. Then you'll have to end up making the holes bigger, and it'll be a sloppy, crappy job, and you won't be happy with it. So take some time, make sure that you get these center to center perfectly, and that you start off with a little tiny drill so you keep the integrity of the hole distance as exact as possible. After I did that, I did a gig with it. I did not put the switch in. Then the second phase was I took it all apart again, and I did the full wiring and put the switch in so that I could completely bypass the effects loop. And you know what? I'll tell you something. I am super happy with this. This thing sounds amazing. And I've since then, what I was using for an effects for delay in the loop is one of these M5s. I mean, they're a great little workhorse. They got a lot of effects. I basically just used a delay with the modulation, and it sounded beautiful. And then I put the expression pedal so I could bring it in and out. But since then, I decided to take it up a step, or actually a large step, and I got myself an El Capistan from Strymon, and it has the most beautiful modulation on this wah and flutter here for your delays. I just got it. I haven't even used it, but I have tried these before, and they're fantastic. They just sound... The great thing about this pedal, it has an actual dry through. So even when it's in the loop, part of your signal is going straight through here and retaining the analog signal, and then part of the signal is digitized, and they work their magic in the box here, and then it goes through. So yeah, I am looking forward to using this live again. Not so much, for the rock thing, but definitely I also do worship music, and this, creating soundscapes and everything is one of the main things that I have to do. And this thing is just going to be wonderful. I had a timeline, Strymon timeline. I just found it had so much on it, so many things that I just couldn't even use them all, and after a while I just sold it and I got myself this pedal, because basically what I just love is modulation on delay repeat. So anyways, so that is all I can think of right now. So if you decide to actually go this way, this is where I mounted it. I mean, there are other places you could mount it, but I don't know. It looks like it's the only real place. I guess you could bring it over here, but then you have no room because of these resistors on the top of the power tubes. I think this is the best place right here. And just make sure, well, actually the bolt holes for the chassis mount onto the head cab, it doesn't go very far, so it's not going to touch the board. You figure out the distance here that you want to go. Basically, there's so many wires that are going down to the preamp tubes. You definitely don't want it to go too far. So I found this is my happy place here. Yeah, so enjoy, because if you have a DrZ, there's very little about this effects loop, and basically these guys here at Metro Amp, the boards they're making, I was talking to Dave Friedman at Friedman Amps, and I'm pretty sure he said he's using the same board as an effects loop in his Friedman amps. And so I think if it's good enough for Dave, it's good enough for me, and it's pretty good enough for anyone else. It's really a nice clear effects loop, and way better than like in a stock Marshall DSL or whatever. So anyways, give these guys a shout. Pick up this board. It's about 75, 80, $100 max, and you'll be super happy. I've had it for about 4 years now. I had it like in my JCM 800 Marshall, very early combo, and yeah, anyways, Happy playing. See you later.